Welcome, low ego action heroes. This is Debbie Levitt from deltacx.com. We're a full service CX and UX agency, and we're ready to do something for you. What is it? I don't know. Contact me. And thank you for joining live today or later on in the future. Hello in the future. This is episode 130, and this is what working in UX is really like. Part 2. And basically, we've been putting together some panels of some friends of the show who are going to talk to you about what working in UX is really like, because have you seen those YouTube videos where it's like a day in the life and it's like, first I unicycle to my job and then I'm just in these cool meetings all day and then I get free lunch and play foosball and then it's more cool meetings. And I'm thinking, said no one ever. So we've gotten together some guests. We did a previous show. I think it was episode 124. So if you're enjoying these, there's another one to check out. And there will be another one in October with 3 other guests. So let's bring in our guests today. You probably know them as they've been on our show before. Thank you so much. You know Shannon from the CRO show. You know Maggie, if nothing else, other than her always awesome comments and fun. You know her from the fake observational research, and you would know Nick from evidently Election Day 2020 stream. I'm still surprised I did that. What was I thinking? Hello, Aitan. She's here. You know when you see the pandas floating that she's here. She says 1 panda for each of you. So let's just jump right in. I'm going to go around the fake room and I'll have you introduce yourselves and let everybody know what your UX background is. I'll start with Shannon.
Hello. I'm Shannon Kelly. My background is, just to say I've been doing stuff on the web design since 2005 professionally. I got into CRO and UX about 6.5 years ago. So I've been doing that full time in those time frames. Yeah.
All right. Shannon Kelly, good to see you. And Ms. Maggie Pena, or just Mags as we know her from the YouTube chat.
Can you hear me?
Yes. And somebody named Nabil is saying, hi, Mags.
Yeah, hi, Nibby. Yeah, so I'm Maggie. Probably see me, just Mags, in the chat. So currently I'm a UX designer at HubSpot. My background is both in industrial design and human-computer interaction, and I've been doing UX for about 5 years now. That's me.
Cool. And Nick Morgan, what can I say? Mentor to the stars. So tell us all about you.
Wow. Hey there, everyone. Nick Morgan. I'm a UX designer, UI designer. That started back in the late 90s when my mom couldn't figure out how to attach an email to Yahoo Mail. That's the start of my journey, like so many others. And worked at large enterprises, small startups, team of 1, team of 100, pretty much everything in between, mainly in the business to business space, a little bit of consumer stuff as well. Yeah, that's me.
And Nick, where can people buy your shirt?
Oh, yes, they can buy this among many other UX themed shirts on Etsy. I love UX design. Just search I love UX design on Etsy. You can see a little bit of it on my website, which is kind of more of my portfolio, but I do advertise a little bit there. I love UX design. And then, of course, you can find me on all the socials, from the Insta to the Twitters to the Facebooks to the places. Yeah, I love UX design.
Super. And for people listening to the show, because some people have told me they don't watch the screen, they just listen, Nick's shirt looks like a Back to the Future movie poster logo, but it says talk to the user, which is a big yes, please. So there, a little bit of description for people not looking at the screen. All right, so let's jump in with a little bit of what working in UX is really like. And I remember last time I'd written down some questions. Let's make sure we get questions from the chat room as well. So I guess let's start with something positive. Can each of you think about a really positive experience, if it exists, in that you had working in UX? Do you have a good story that you can tell about when something went well, or UX saved the day, or something that's got a happy ending? And of course, for those listening to the show, I've told our guests, please don't name names, don't name companies, try to keep things anonymous. Who wants to start with a positive story about a UX day that went really well? We'll throw an effect on that. The UX day that went really well. Nick, you look ready to say something.
I've got one queued up I can share. I'm
Okay.
anonymizing it in my head. So there was a very long form which had about 30 fields on it, and I proposed to have fewer fields, and the team said no thank you. And I was pretty new at my role, so I wasn't really trying to have that discussion much more than a proposal. So fast forward to like a year later, and like, hey Nick, let's get fewer fields. And I said, here's a design for you, and it reduced some of the expenses by more than 50% that were being incurred by like the previous design.
Beautiful.
So
Hold on,
awesome.
I've got.
Oh, thanks.
Yes.
It wasn't a day; it was like a year and
yes. Sadly, that was like a year later. I told you so, but at least it worked out well for the user.
Definitely.
And we do have some questions coming in the chat room, but let's wrap up this one first. Maggie, you ready with a story?
Yeah. I think going super anon high level, I think one time we had certain gut feelings that a design direction wasn't the right one. So I ganged up with my researcher and I said, hey, can we like do this low key? And if it leads to something that's going to help us. And essentially it did. We made sure that we were on track with everything else, but we went a little bit off the grid, low key, and we started talking to certain people, and eventually we discovered, okay, there was something there. So we were super glad that we followed that gut feeling, and we were able to present that to the business, and that helped pivot the design direction eventually.
Super. Applause for you too. Shannon, you've got a story of the day the UX went well?
Yeah, I think, a lot of times you have with stakeholders, they kind of have an idea of what they want for, let's say, a website redesign. And we said, okay, let's get some user research. Let's interview some people or have them do some moderated or unmoderated testing. And they allowed us to do that. I think the I told you so moment was having one page that was for one industry, and when they replicated it for another industry, it didn't work. And that was the kind of that gut feeling that we had. It's never good to replicate the same type of wording. And through the user testing, we were able to show that, the wording didn't resonate, and the copy wasn't the right for this industry. And we were able to change that, and conversions went up.
Thank you, CRO lady. Hold on. Applause. I'll tell a quick one if you don't mind me joining in on this panel. Many years ago, I was freelancing at an agency, and they had a startup come in, and the startup was really a terrible idea. I really didn't think it was a very viable company, but they were throwing a lot of money at this agency. And what they wanted the website to be redesigned so that it matched their new call center scripts. Because if you called up the call center, you ended up going through this process of a questionnaire that they were asking potential new customers. And the website had an old questionnaire for new customers. And so they wanted these things to match. Okay, makes sense. So they gave us almost no information. They sent me a call center script, and that was like it. And I was like, what do we do? And the project manager said, make the best thing you can. And so I did, and I actured it up, and we showed it to the client, and they were like, oh, no, there's no way legal's going to allow you to do this. Oh, no, we can't ask these questions in this order. We're going to ask them in a different order. They wanted to ask the most invasive personal questions first. And I was like, no, date before you marry. And they insisted that I mock up this other way. So I did version 2, and I did what they asked for, because sometimes you're stuck doing that. And so when it went to moderated usability testing, for which they brought in an outside company, I didn't do. So I didn't even plan it. I didn't know what they were going to do, but I was watching it live and remotely. And they had 8 people, one at a time. And I was surprised to find that they were showing people version 2. And then they were going, by the way, we have this other version that we'd like to show you. And they were showing them version 1. And all 8 people were like, oh yeah, I like the second one better. The second one is much easier and da da da. And the client was like, okay, you were right. You know, this was the way to go. But where I really caught on fire was 7 of the 8 people volunteered without being asked that they would never do business with this company because their idea was so terrible. And so gong. So that was like a mini I told you so. So you know, it was another UX and testing save the day. So well, I got the gong for you, Kayleen. So, you know, it just kind of worked there. All right, so we've got a question from Aitan. We'll go around the room, and then we've got a question from Kayleen. So let me queue these up in my system, and let's start with Aitan. She asks, yes, what do you do in day-to-day life? Is it like the YouTube vlogs? So maybe we can go around in a different order and maybe just give us a sample of what a typical day of your work is like. If it's got triumphs, let us know. If it's got tragedies or conflict, let us know. If it's just 8 hours of meetings. So who's ready to volunteer to go first and talk about a normal day in your UX job? Shannon?
Sure. Well, I'll say a lot of it is still like your normal type of office job. You know, you get in or you log on and you're checking your emails and all that stuff and messages and seeing what people need and where you're at, I guess. I think a lot of the time, my days have always been filled with, finding out that strategy, UX strategy wasn't involved. They didn't get us in soon enough, type of thing. And they just want this design made. And it's like not fighting, but whining and complaining to my manager about how we need to be in, earlier in the process and all that stuff. And they need to give us some time to do some research. And this is the proper way to do this. And there's a lot of that. And there's a lot of, yeah, I know, I'll work on that and we'll get this fixed or whatever. And then, depending on the role at the time, it may have been a lot of designing and wireframing. A lot of it may be for me, analytics and looking at research results and stuff like that, and kind of trying to figure out a solution for whatever we're testing. So all in all, the day can be happy or it could be sad. I mean, it depends on the day, but there are, usually there's a meeting or two involved in that too. Sometimes it's in the initial, hey, we're going to do this, and they get us in the launch, like the launch of the project and strategies, welcome. And then sometimes it's just, hey, why didn't you get this done? Why can't you do this in 2 days? So yeah, it's just a lot of emails, tasks. We have Jira board where I'm at now. We have a certain board that we, get assigned tasks. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just people throwing out ideas at you sometimes, and you have to organize it. So it's not only does the work you have to do kind of be organized and figure out things from that standpoint, but just all the tasks that get thrown at you sometimes, and the pushback that you have to be like, hey, wait a second,
Can't
put
do
this in
2 days.
Yeah. So it's chaotic sometimes.
Okay, thanks. Nick, what about a day from you?
Yeah, a lot of similarities. I'm an inbox zero kind of person, so I usually clear out all my chats, my emails. I leave anything unread that's like kind of like a to-do item for the day. I also have like a paper that I actually use. I know it's super like old school, low tech kind of solution, but I usually have a to-do list of things, because inevitably someone's got some random request in the middle of the day, or, hi puppy, wherever you are. Yeah. And then, kind of chasing down answers, right? If it's a requirement coming from an engineer, then you go and make sure with the business analyst or the product owner, product manager, if that meets the requirement, if there's like some feasibility issue, maybe a business analyst or a product owner has some new requirement that they've uncovered from the client or the customer, then you have to kind of circle back with engineers and make sure that it can be built. A lot of meetings, lots of coffee, and some work in between all of that, or during, if you're able to multitask, which I'm sometimes good at, sometimes not. And then usually I try to, end my day with a couple of wins. So, closing a Jira ticket might be a good one. Getting a smiley face in a chat from someone that you've been, creating deliverables for. They're small wins, but they're good. That's my day.
Love it. Maggie, your day?
Yeah, I would say a lot of similarities, and also depends on the role, right? I've definitely been in roles where it's a little bit more quiet, and it's very much on me trying to figure out a lot of these things, trying to sync up with people. But if I'm part of a larger team, then I may be doing more project-based type of meetings, and then I have my like team-based type of meetings, right? So if I'm part of a larger design team, we have more designy ops type of things going on, and retros and whatnot. I would say I try to always, Mondays are usually my ramp up, my planning, and then my Fridays are definitely my wind down and kind of my self reflection and retros as well as to what's going to be next week. I would say rarely my weeks look the same. And it depends if I'm working on one or two projects at the same time or more.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you. We already have 10 questions queued up in the chat. So yeah, it's mostly Solomon. He's on fire. And Solomon, you've been working in UX for years. So what are you doing? But okay. So but these are good questions. He's got good questions.
This is a support group. He's just trying to ask if we're all, like the same as him.
Is he coming to the next one? Wait, who's in the next one? I think we have Solomon in the next one. Solomon, be careful. Karma's a thing. Someone's going to ask you like 9 million questions. So let me see. The next one we're doing, by the way, is October 25th. It is Solomon, isn't it? It's Solomon, Julia, who we know from our fake cooking show, and Sophie Fryermuth, who's also going to be a guest on October 4th. So Solomon, he says, I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, get ready to get grilled by future you. Okay, so let's go into some of these questions. Let's start with Kayleen's question, which came in 8 minutes ago. And it says, what might be the pros and cons of openly communicating research versus doing it secretly? I think she's jumping off from maybe Maggie's story a little bit or something like that. I am going to have to ask each of you for maybe the lightning version of these answers because we have so many questions queued up. So if you each want to give a little answer about pros and cons of secret research, Maggie.
I don't think I've ever done secret. We usually try to try to compound it with whatever we're already doing if we can. And the pros that we found is like no harm, no foul. Like if it's not a big deal and we don't really have like a determined thing to present to stakeholders, again, no harm. But if we do find something, then that leads to a larger conversation, which has led to beneficial pivoting or design decisions along the way. But I've never done something that's 100% secret. It's more of a figuring out how to like fit it in with everything else if it makes sense.
Cool. Anybody else want to add anything to that? Pros and cons of secret or semi-secret research, sneaking it in when maybe it wasn't part of the original plan. Nick?
I guess, yeah. I mean, again, to kind of echo what Maggie had mentioned, I've never seen secret user research, but maybe trying to understand the balance between business objectives and user needs. And if you find that the user need is great enough and the business objective, not the business objective, but the outcome for the business is going to be detrimental enough, I guess. But the more people you involve, the better the outcome's going to be for you and your career as an individual, because you need to keep everybody in the loop, and the more people involved, the better your research could potentially be, hopefully. So that's all.
Shannon, anything to add?
I'll say real quick, Pros, if you're the one doing the secret research, you feel special because you're doing the secret research. Cons, if you're not doing the secret research, then you're going to be very mad because you should be involved in that and everything is siloed.
Like it. Super good point there. Okay, thanks. I'm going to move right on to one of the many Solomon questions that have been coming through. Meetings. What types of meetings do you tend to be in, and how long do they last? I'm kind of summarizing his question there. What types of meetings are you in, and how long do they last? Shannon, meetings.
Sometimes it's project planning. Sometimes it's the, hey, why are we complicating this with research type of meetings? So it's more of like a lecture.
That's the wrong
but
question.
sometimes it's, but mostly it's gathering together and talking about the project that's needed and really deciding if you have to push back or not. Sometimes they're half an hour. Sometimes they're an hour. Just depends on what the project scope is and what the stakeholders are asking for.
All right. Nick?
Yeah, so it depends. The more people involved, the longer it can take to get through an agenda, which means potentially a second meeting. Because the first one was a greeting, a meeting for a meeting because the first one was
Who's
a greeting.
on the call?
Got another meeting after that.
Who's on the call?
Yep. That's part of it. And then depending, if it's a discovery meeting or research, those are gonna, take longer. If it's, planning for like a product increment or something of a large scale, then chances are that meeting is going to be a lot longer because you're planning for a longer period of time. But I think there's some research that shows 37 minutes is the most effective time to spend in a meeting. I don't know where I saw that. I'll get back to you on that. But I try to keep my meetings to like an hour. But anywhere from half an hour for stand-ups or 15 minutes preferably to 2 hours.
Maggie, meeting universe, meeting multiverse.
Yeah, pretty similar. I think I agree on the point. The more people, the longer it is. Usually, we try to avoid anything longer than an hour, to be honest, and those are far and few in between. We try to keep them 30 minutes. And there's usually an agenda and maybe some docs people can even look at before the meeting, right? So it's more of a alignment and longer discussions that are probably easier to talk through in like a chat versus like commenting back and forth.
Yeah, good idea there. Send some of those docs ahead of time so it's not, let me read you some slides.
God, no.
I hate someone's going to read me something meetings. Ugh. Also, I'm trying to shorten meetings. I'm trying to do the 25-minute half hour and the 50-minute hour. Not when you book time with me through the Delta CX world. I'm happy to give you the full hour, but I mean like in my regular job adventures, try to cut those short. That's just a suggestion. Let's jump into Stephanie's question, which she was lovely enough to ask 11 minutes ago, and it says, what's the strangest or most surprising thing you discovered while discovering research? Like strange results you did not expect at all. I don't know if we can give some of these away. Anybody have strange? Mine would have to be the 8 people who were like, I don't even want to do business with your company. This idea sucks. That was great because that wasn't even a question. The people were just volunteering it. So I still think that's my winner for strangest research, though I think I have another story that I could add, but let's get everybody else first. Maggie, strange research?
I don't think it was super strange. It was me more lacking the context that some people had in terms of like, well, we don't really care for this. It's more like we have to use it, but we really hate it. And it's like, that was like, hearing that interview after interview was interesting. But again, not surprising to my stakeholders. So
hey, everyone hates this. Yeah, we knew that. Well, then what the fuck, everyone? Nick, something to add?
Nothing's really coming to mind. I mean, yeah, people didn't want to put in their Twitter username, I guess. Really random.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have much.
Okay. Shannon, anything to add? Optional.
Yes, kind of similar to yours, except for the not working with the thing. I think it was like 10 unmoderated participants that we had in some testing, and like 60% of them said the same thing. Why don't you just do this? And it was like, okay, that was a no-brainer. We should have like saw that coming. But like, it's just funny that they all said that. Like 60% of them said that. So it's like, okay, wow, all right.
Right. I guess that's a thing. I will just quickly tell the story of the weirdest interview I ever had. There was this guy, and he was from California, and he was an agent for for our clients. So we were talking to the agents to learn more about their customers. And as soon as he got on the line, I recognized his accent. And I recognized his accent as my original accent, which is Massapequa, New York. And I was like, "Are you from Massapequa?" And he's like, "Yeah." And then like we went through this whole, he's going through the whole like, "Did you know this guy? And where did you hang out on the weekend?" And I'm trying to interview this guy. I've got this whole discussion guide, and he keeps trying to talk about like, "Hey, we used to hang out at the funeral home." And I said, "No, I did not hang out at the funeral home. That doesn't even seem like a good idea." And finally, Nabil says, "Long Island represent." Yeah. And finally, like I'm asking the guy, I said, and how do you hear any feedback from your customers about the website? And he's like, "You know what you should do? You should take everything that's red and make it blue." I said, "But the corporate color is red." He's like, "No, make it blue." And finally, I was like, "Oh, this isn't going very well, but I'm going to keep trying to get something out of this guy." And I asked him a question. I don't remember what it is, but out of nowhere, he yells, "I bet I smoked pot with your grandmother." And I was like, and this is being recorded for the client, and he's their, authorized agent. And my gut reaction was possibly my uncle, but definitely not my grandmother. And finally, after that call was over, and my project manager was sitting in listening to this, and I just looked at her and I'm like, "Can we delete that one?" And she's like, "Yes." Yeah. So there you go. Crazy stories about things that happen in research, because they happen in research. So let's move on. I want to mix this up a little bit because we have so many questions from Solomon. So I just want to get some other people's questions in. No offense to Solomon. So I've got a new way to show questions. Sorry, it covers Maggie. Maggie can lean to the right a little bit. Jonathan on LinkedIn, because I can't show LinkedIn questions on the screen, thank you, says, "What are some time management tips you use to get work done, and how has COVID working from home changed your productivity?" Who wants to talk about COVID and working from home and time management? Anybody?
Sure, I can jump in and
All
say
right,
I
jump
think
on in, and I'll give Maggie
time
the space
management.
back.
I think it's been good that I'm able to start earlier and work a little later because I'm not driving to work. So that's pretty much some of the benefits of COVID work from home. I think initially when we went into lockdown, I was more productive just because I think there was a panic to make sure that we were all getting work done. I'm still productive, but we've been in the office 2 days a week, and I've seen pretty productive there too. So as far as time management, I think it depends, but I think as long as you kind of know what your schedule is and what you're supposed to work on, and then what takes the higher priority, then that's just how I manage my time. This is what I'm focused on. Of course, I get things thrown at me, but as long as they're like little tiny tasks that don't like throw me completely off the trail, I'll squeeze them in if I need to. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much mine.
Maggie, anything to add about time management and working from home?
It definitely took me a time to figure it out. I used to be hybrid, but then being fully remote really kind of changed it for me. So I had to figure out what worked for me. I tried doing Pomodoro stuff. I've always been a fan of to-do lists, so I'm very low tech when it comes to that, so that I know what's I have a to-do list for this week, and then I also have a to-do list for next week. So I kind of update that as I go just to keep my sanity, and then whatever tools we have at work for whatever my current job is. just to keep track of what I'm doing as well. If we're using Jira or Asana or Trello, whatever it is, that also helps. And I kind of link those back out to myself as well. I am special, but I'm still trying to figure out. I don't think there's a right way to do it. You just need to figure out what sticks.
Nick, something to add?
Sure. Yeah, I've been working from home since 2013. So when COVID working from home kind of came around last year, there was a lot of catch up from my colleagues that weren't used to that. So that kind of created a little bit of onboarding, so to speak. But generally, I'm really efficient with being productive. I have workshops that I do with different folks to do real-time design. So it's almost like we're there in person. Yeah, I would say that just making sure you have your priorities, because a lot of folks will ask you to do things and they don't know that you have other stuff in your to-do list. They think, oh, hey, this is really important. I need this done. When in reality, maybe it's not done, or maybe it's not due for like 2 weeks or something, but they need it now to start like working through it. So just getting clarity from the people that are requesting things from you is going to help. Like, when is this needed by? Absolute latest. And when can we meet and do an initial preview or review of things, so that way you can balance all of the things on your to-do list. I think that's my advice.
Yeah, and I think sometimes you have to reach out to a manager and say, look, what is my priority? Or a project manager and
Sure.
say, look, there's too much happening here. Help me prioritize this. I don't want to guess wrong. Sometimes I'll say that, and because I don't want to hear later, why'd you do that? We needed this other thing. Well, when you're going to tell me that one was more important. So I think reaching out helps and makes sense. Thanks to Jonathan for that question. Let's go back to the... Oh,
If I may add a little bit more,
Yeah.
don't be afraid to block off time in your calendar either. That helps.
yeah, I-10 said she does that too. I attempted to do that at my most recent job and it did not work. So if it's working for y'all, give that a try. For me, people just scheduled right over it. So, there you go. Let's see. Let's go to this question from Solomon, because we do have a lot, and but in a good way. He had a lot of good questions. What's a typical timeline for most projects? So Shannon's talking about how sometimes she gets 2 days to do something. What kinds of timelines are you getting for your projects? Who wants to jump in there? Nobody. It hurts too much. Maggie.
It does hurt.
Depends.
Okay, Nick. Somebody.
Depends. Anywhere from like 2-3 weeks to like 9 months.
Ooh,
Or more.
okay. Schmancy.
Yeah, new
Everyone
feature
work there.
versus, I know, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
new feature versus like an existing one. If it's a
Yep.
field label change, like a day,
Yep.
depending on how technically feasible it is and what the actual requirement is. Sometimes you have to kind of reiterate it. So you end up, or at least I end up asking a ton of questions that make me sound like I don't understand, when in fact I'm really just trying to get to the root of what I'm not quite hearing. And so that can make things extended a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I guess it just depends on the size of the feature. If it's new, how many people are involved yet again, I think is a key indicator there.
Shannon, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's like you said, 2 days, you have to turn around something and kind of figure it out. Generally, I think about like a month or so is the average project timeline for me. I've had time to research up to a year because the development resources weren't there, so I was able to take my time and do as much thorough research as we could. So yeah, it's definitely depends, I guess. Hey, that's the thing that UXers say. It depends.
I need an it depends graphic. So let me write
Yeah.
that down.
Yes.
Hold on. It
Yeah.
depends.
Yes.
Okay. There we go. And we'll work on that. Let's jump around to some other questions. Here's one from I-10, and she asks, how do you become friends with the marketing department, especially if the company is more profit-oriented than UX-oriented? And the rest of the question got cut off because my system, but it says, lots of sales tricks or dark patterns. Has anybody successfully become buddies with a marketing department? All right. Nick says yes. Nick, how do you do it?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, I
Champagne and
usually,
chocolate.
this was when I was in person. What's that?
Champagne and chocolate.
Yeah, champagne and chocolate, easy win. Um, I would think it was easier when I was in person, but I've always kind of been eager to help the marketing department, either through creating ads that help, convert better, or offering UX assistant, although not too aggressively, unless they, come to me for it. But yeah, generally reaching out when I first, started a company, I try and meet with the marketing folks because that's like the top of the sales funnel, right? That's like awareness and getting people to like possibly buy the product, and then for us UX designers and UI designers, that's when they're actually users, after the chooser has chosen that product. So I think there's a strong correlation that needs, and kind of a tie that needs to be made. But generally, just reaching out and saying, hey, I'm on this team. I do design too. I'd love to meet your designers, and just see what, share what we're both working on and see how we can help each other. Just totally open-ended and not too aggressive, and then let things kind of happen naturally after that. That's been my strategy. Not really strategy.
Sounds good. Sounds more effective than getting him drunk. Maggie, anything to add to that? Have you made friends with marketing?
Yeah, I would say so. I think kind of echoing what Nick said, it also helps if you have maybe some overlapping time to kind of exchange ideas and topics of kind of like TED talking almost, right? You bring a topic to kind of share, and then you kind of have time to discuss what are the similarities or differences. I think that's been an interesting conversation that I've seen happen. I think it helps establish that understanding of like what I do, what we can offer from like how we benefit from each other, as well as kind of showcase the different skills that everybody has and kind of putting a face to a name. So if I have a question, I know who to potentially go to, and then that can open more and more doors.
Super. Anything else to add? Shannon, did we get to you yet?
No, we didn't. But I will say, I think it helps that I do have a background in marketing, having worked in agencies, on marketing teams, etc. Obviously, CRO is very much market heavy as far as the goals and whatnot. I think what's helped me is to really prove the knowledge I have about what they're doing, so that they're just like, oh, you're just a designer, or you're just this. It's like, well, no, I can pull this information for you. I've helped with conversion rates. I've done this, or I've worked in these different digital channels. Like, here's what I know. Here's how I can help support you, type of thing. So, I've gotten on the good side of the managers at those departments, and like, different companies and whatnot. So just from having some knowledge about it helps, I guess. If you can do any kind of free training on digital marketing, especially if you're in the digital space, then by all means, it's only going to help you with that relationship, so you can talk their language and they can feel comfortable.
Yeah, that's something that I said in my book a few years ago, is that if I think, like, if I suggested UX people learn anything, I would rather tell you to learn some marketing than some coding, because that way you can speak marketing's language. And not that those are the only two choices, and you can learn both. But, if you're going to spend your time or money on something, I think it would be so much better for us to speak more of marketing's language than to lean over developers and go, I don't like that line of code you wrote. I think I know better. So there you go. I10 says, can I text you in private, Shannon? Well, I guess any of you can send each other private messages in the Slack community. So, yeah, I guess so. I'm not going to give out Shannon's phone number, but yeah, you can certainly send each other messages in the Slack community. Let's jump to
I'm also on LinkedIn, so you can find me there.
That's true. She's on LinkedIn as well, with her hair down. Let's jump to a Wilson question, even though I see questions from Solomon and Niku. We'll get to those next. Wilson asks, have you experienced someone else in the company doing user interviews who aren't UX people? Were there useful insights? Did they ask good questions? So I guess a little bit, I would probably rephrase this as, anything you want to talk about, how you've handled when non-UX people have tried to do some UX work, and where that went well or where that went poorly, or where you had to draw some lines. Shannon, anything from your world on that one? Do you want to start?
Sure. I think the answer is yes. I've seen people that are technically non UXers kind of try to facilitate UX work. It kind of depends on their department and what they're handling. If they're a customer service rep, then by all means, I want them to keep continuing to talk to the customer to see where the issues lie or where a group of issues may lie, within multiple users. Um, it really depends. They're obviously working on their goal to fix the issue or solve the problem or report a bug. So they're doing the interviewing. I have no problem with that. Sometimes customer liaisons or maybe an account manager might be doing the questioning. They might not be doing it from the most scientific angle, I guess you could say, or the most professional UX level, but they definitely want to make sure the customer is happy from that sense. So I don't have a problem with that. I do have a problem with people that are just like, oh, we should do this. And they're like, okay, I'll go do that. And it's like, okay, you don't have a plan. You got to have a plan. If you're going to talk to people, especially if it's like a limited pool of people who have volunteered to speak up, it's like, let's have a plan to really tackle this and making sure that that's the right audience. And this is who we need to answer these questions. So, yeah, that's my only pushback is making sure know what you're going into and how you're planning on questioning.
And Wilson's follow-up, and we'll get to Maggie and Nick in a moment, is I guess, are you looking in on their discussion guides or protocols to try to make sure they're not asking biased or leading crappy questions?
I guess in my point of view, it's like, if I don't really know what they're doing day to day, I can't speculate on what they're doing. I know with like customer service, for example, like, they're always trying to find a solution and help the customer out. So I'm happy with whatever they're asking, whether it may be biased or not. That's really up to their training and expertise there. But yeah, if somebody's just going off and doing something, it's like, obviously I don't want you to be biased. I want you to have a plan, and I want you to be asking questions that aren't leading. So yeah, I think there's a right way to do things, and there's definitely a wrong way to do research.
Always true. Maggie, something to add?
I would say depending at what point you're coming in, right? Can you even affect any change? Can you collaborate? Can you like go with them? Can you even comment on their docs if they have any, right? Sometimes it becomes a little bit of a feedback / hey, I have some resources that could really help us out along the way versus, oh, can I come with you, and you kind of build that rapport so that when the next round comes in, then you can have that discussion as to, oh, maybe we should do it this way because from my perspective is we do it this way, and then kind of build that. So yeah, it kind of, to me, just kind of depends where you're at or where you're coming from.
Nick, anything to add about when non-UXers try to do UX work?
Yeah, it kind of comes down to, what kind of users they're talking to. Maybe they're the users that are actually choosers. Sometimes marketing teams tend to do a lot of research that is more chooser focused rather than UX and UI folks doing user research that's user focused. So you kind of have to understand the intention, but oftentimes when it's other teams, you're not going to have a lot of visibility into the scripts, or if they even have them, until maybe you, or if you're even invited to, or try to invite yourself to any of those sessions as a silent observer, what that script really looks like. But again, yeah, just really what is the goal of the research? If the goal of the research is to see if they like the size of the logo on their homepage, maybe that's useful, maybe that isn't. But yeah, again, it's about building a relationship with those other teams to establish, trust and the fact that you're all on the same team. That's kind of like the biggest hurdle that sometimes is right there in front of you.
Thanks. We've got 15 minutes left and like 6 questions, so I'm going to have to apologize that we may or may not get to everybody's questions. I know, doesn't time go so fast? We're like almost done here. And of course, Wilson is very grateful to everybody for their answers. Let's jump to Niku's question, and then we'll get back to some Solomon questions. Niku asks, hey everyone, do you get to see your project evolve from end to end at your job, or do you come in at a specific stage and exit before the next? Super question. Nick is doing a little bit of an interesting belly dance. Nick, do you want to start with that one? Where do you come in the process?
There's an ideal process which involves research and post-release research. Not every project gets that. It depends on the timelines and so forth. So I've been pretty involved throughout my career in the end-to-end process whenever possible, but sometimes other teams kick things off. Sometimes an outside agency is brought in to do parts of the pre-work. So, I try to be there as much as I can. I would say 90% of the time I'm there from the end to the end. Yeah, that's been my experience.
Cool. Shannon, how about you? Where do you come and go in the process?
Well, like I said earlier, sometimes it's hard to get into the strategy and the planning phase of a project, but when I am, I'm usually through it till it hits at least development, and then if development informs me that there's a development version of this on that nobody can see or whatever that we can test with or whatnot. Sometimes I'm involved in that, making sure that's working properly, everything's going to plan. And then sometimes, it kind of ends right there at my research and all the information I've presented to them. So, it depends if either the developer and or the project manager for that instance informs me that, hey, we're launching this or whatever. Sometimes I don't know until it's after it's launched, and I'm like, whoa, this isn't what we discussed. This wasn't what, but generally I'm through the process of like the research, design, and development. So.
Maggie?
I 100% agree with what they said. It also depends if you're coming in new into the company or not, right? Sometimes you get thrown into these more softball projects that may be like halfway done, and it's more of a introduction for you to like get your bearings. And then I've also been part, or I try to be a part of, from the end to end, at least development cycle. And maybe I leave the company before I even see like the iterations. So it's the internal and external.
Yes. Ooh, yeah. Good question about, well, even good thought about. Sometimes we do not stay at companies very long because, not because we're disloyal or fickle, but because we have some negative work experiences or conflicts or managers. Does anybody want to comment on maybe in your experiences how long you've stayed at jobs or had to leave jobs? Again, don't name jobs in particular, but what's the longest job you've stayed at? What's the shortest you've been at a job? I tend to be a contractor, so I'm usually a quick hired gun, but maybe what about some of you? Maggie?
I always come in with good intentions to stay for the long run, but sometimes something a little bit more interesting comes along.
Wilson thinks you're too PG today.
Yeah,
I'm not even sure what that means.
Wilson, shut up. I'm trying to like, be careful here today. No,
She's
I
doing a
think
great job, Wilson. What are you doing?
we come in with good intentions, and sometimes something that better aligns with where we're at comes along, and it's time to go, right? So I think my shortest, maybe close to a year. My longest, I don't even remember. But I don't really come in with, I'm gonna stay here only a year, right? It just, I kind of take it a day by day situation.
All right. Nick, long and short jobs?
Yeah, short jobs, usually contracts. Longest job, almost 6 years.
Okay. Shannon?
I'd say anywhere from 2 to 3.5 years has been shortest to longest. I think where I am now is the longest so far. But yeah.
All right, I'm going to pick and choose a couple of questions here for our last 10 minutes. I like, hold on, this one from Solomon. Let's put it up on the screen. Who are your biggest and most reliable allies? Who do you come into conflict with the most? And again, maybe just general roles or titles. Please don't name. Yeah, Jim Smith. He's a jerk. Like, let's not name names. Roles or titles or departments that tend to be your allies or tend to be sources of conflict. To make everybody comfortable, I will say that the biggest sources of conflict I've had at jobs, it's kind of a tie between product and engineering. Product tends to think they can do my job, and engineering tends to think they need it fast and they like their own idea. So why aren't we just going with that? Those have been my experiences, and allies have been hard for me to find at traditional corporate jobs. Hopefully these three people have some better stories than I do, but it's hard for me to remember where I've had good allies, because I guess I remember the conflicts more. Let's jump in on somebody here. Nick, allies, conflicts?
Yeah, total same as you. Allies usually in product and in engineering. Also, since you work with those teams so much, that's where conflict can naturally arise. Thankfully, it has not been too frequent, I would say. I mean, it's you're going to have natural tension, right? To have disagreement and so forth. So as long as you can resolve it, that's a good thing. So yeah, I would say clients are also another good ally. Sometimes you have internal clients, and they usually are very excited when you include them in the research and show them that you're, taking their feedback and incorporating it into the product. So yeah, that's mine.
Good point. Agree. Clients rock. How about Shannon this time?
Yeah, I'd say, like I said earlier, kind of proving your worth to marketing. Sometimes I get very good marketing allies. Sometimes I don't. I think depending on personality type, POs, product owners can be very on board with UX research. And sometimes they aren't into it. You really have to prove the worth there. I would say the worst instance I've had, though, with like a non-ally would be like a lead engineer, who said that they didn't believe in UX research because they don't believe in like peer groups and stuff like that. Like what is it?
Personas?
Gosh, I'm blanking right now. What's that?
Focus group.
Focus groups, yeah. They're like, I don't believe in focus groups, so I don't believe in UX. And it's like, well, focus groups are just like a tiny, tiny thing that you can do, and it's not the best type of UX. So yeah.
Maggie, something to add?
I would say from all angles, my biggest allies have also come from product engineering, or even like if I'm part of a design department, of course, they're probably going to have each other's backs. But I've also had my biggest hurdles have also come from either engineering or product, and it also stems from my experience. They've never worked with somebody like me, or they lack the knowledge. So it takes a little bit of relationship building for us to get there. But then once they get it, sometimes they become my biggest allies.
Shannon's story reminded me of a time I was in a big 20-person meeting with like every team function you can imagine. And it turned out the engineers had designed something themselves and we in UX had never seen it. And I was very confused, like, where did that come from? And how was I not involved in that at all? And the lead engineer shouted, UX is lean waste, and I celebrate my engineers cutting lean waste. And the whole room just looked at him. And I sent him a message literally a year later. And I was like, can I ask where you got that idea from, that UX is lean waste that should be cut? And he goes, oh yeah, just read the Lean UX book. So there's that.
Burn it. Burn it.
It hurts.
Burn it.
I'll give you the fire. Please hold. Larry Marine is here, which I'm always excited to see, and he's got a question underneath the flames. And he says, How long or what did it take for your non-UX colleagues to learn to accept your contributions without requiring you to justify them? Or are you still having to justify them? I don't know. I guess we always have to justify some of our research findings a little bit, but I think I know what he means by this. Nick, can I throw this at you first?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of some experiences that I had. Usually it's when I've seen it when the client gets super stoked on some solution and engineers say it's feasible, then the product manager is like, awesome. And maybe they didn't support or they didn't have a clear understanding of what you were proposing until like other people bought into it. On the engineering side, it's usually when you can help troubleshoot like something being implemented, different than what you designed. Yeah, it's a mixed bag. I'm just trying to really pinpoint it, but yeah, I think it comes down to establishing that relationship, and then that trust that sort of breaks that barrier is usually accomplished when you have some kind of success, like the scenarios I was just describing.
Thanks. Thank you. Maggie, anything to add?
Yeah, echoing kind of like what Nick said. It also it depends on the situation as well. I've also like if it's things I can back up with like outside resources, that I trust, I'll throw those. Just it's like, hey, this is not just because I said so. And that
John
also
Norman
helps.
said so.
Yeah. uh, it helps building trust from different angles and building that relationship, but it also depends on what exactly is creating that barrier as well. Is it a lack of understanding? Is it they've been doing it this way and change is hard, or they've never worked with me before? Like, what is that? And trying to understand the root cause so that I can better move forward.
Super. Thank you. Shannon, anything to add?
Yeah, the same. I think, like I said, the longest I've ever been somewhere is like 3.5 years. I think after two, if I feel like I'm not making waves, that's and helping other people see the glory that is UX research. I think it's one of those things where it's like the maturity in this company is not so great or whatever. But I have made milestones with different departments. Like I said, having allies in marketing, and some POs and whatnot. But it depends.
I need an it depends graphic. So not to quote the source of Nick's shirt design, but we're out of time. Wasn't that the license plate on the car from Back to the Future? Out of time? So we're out of time. I'd like to give each member of our panel, first of all, never-ending gratitude, and also remind everybody, each of you, please give some closing remarks and remind everybody of where they can find you and stalk you and connect with you or buy a shirt you're wearing. So let's go in order on the screen. Shannon, closing remarks and where can we find you?
Well, I'll just say where you can find me, which is LinkedIn. It's / Shannon M. Kelly, and also on the Slack channel, Debbie's Slack channel, for Delta CX. On there, and I'd just like to say thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming back. Maggie, where do we find you?
Yeah, definitely find me via LinkedIn at Maggie UXD. Please attach a note so that I know. I get a lot of randos. You can also find me in Delta CX Slack and Design Buddies.
Cool. And Nick, again, people are going crazy over your shirt, so make sure you remind everybody where to get that.
Awesome. Yeah, I love UX design. You can find the shirt and lots of other branded style products on Etsy. All of the socials that I'm on are I love UX design. That's Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, soon to be YouTube, soon to be Twitch, and I love UXdesign.com.
I had to leave Twitch, so let's talk privately because you might end up feeling similarly. So let me just give you a little
Soon
warning.
to not be Twitch, perhaps.
Yeah, let
we'll
me
talk
just
about
give you
it.
I'll send you a Slack message. Let me just give you a little behind the scenes warning about some of the things hiding in their terms of service.
Yeah.
We tried Twitch for a month and then we had to leave it because of that. So, all right. And don't forget, everybody, you can also buy Nick's shirts on Etsy. Look for I Love UX Design. Yeah, he's giving us the thumbs up and pointing and all that. So check those out. And that's it. And everybody knows where to find me, the Slack channel, which of course is free to join. Our Slack workspace is deltacx.link/join Slack and totally free. We have almost 1,000 members right now, though I would say about 100 or so are active at any given time. So it's a pretty good balance there. Please do subscribe here on YouTube and press the like button, and especially leave a comment after we're done. And as a new feature on the show, I just want to take a moment to personally thank our mid-level action heroes and higher, who are the people who are higher level paid subscribers on the YouTube channel: Anita, Chang, Darren, Irena, Jordan, Michelle, Nikki, Ralitza, Ray, and Solomon, man of many questions. And of course, thanks to the people who are also the junior low ego action heroes who also support the channel and help me pay for all of this wackiness. So I will see everybody tomorrow. Tomorrow, as always, is office hours. Ask me anything. So I will catch you then. And until then, everybody, please wear 18 masks, even if you've been vaccinated. Let's not get COVID. You can mostly control this. And be safe and happy. Thanks again to our panel, and I'll see everybody tomorrow. Customer centricity as business intelligence. Visit deltacx.com to learn why we are